Hey, everybody. Welcome to today's Clear Path Leadercast. I am Craig Anderson. I've spent the majority of my career working in corporate America, also grew a small business from 500,000 to 5 million before we sold that business. And I became a leadership confidence coach after that experience because, frankly, I was an accidental leader. I struggled to learn leadership. I had a degree in English. I had no business experience and found myself in corporate America. And I really had to start paying attention to what was going around me so that I could become the leader that I aspired to be. And a lot of that was observing what made strong leaders in the organizations I was in, and conversely, what made poor leaders in the organizations I was in. So it was a great learning experience for me. But what I don't want is for other people to have to go through such a long and torturous leadership education process like I went through. So I started Clear Path Coaching and Consulting to help leaders get there to where they want to be faster, giving them the lessons that I learned so they don't have to go out and learn themselves the hard way wherever I can help them do it. Today, we're going to be talking about one of the most challenging things that for me to learn, and I think for a lot of other people to learn as well, which is about having difficult conversations, usually performance conversations, but they're really difficult to hold. So let's talk about having difficult conversations. These are tough for a number of reasons. My personal reason it was so tough as I was coming up through the ranks is for me, I coded conversations about performance as dangerous as conflict. And I'm very conflict avoidant in general. So it was hard, for me, I just kind of decided, well, cross my fingers. Maybe it will go away. Maybe I won't have to deal with this. They'll figure out what the issue is and get better. And, sometimes that works, sometimes that doesn't work. But what started to happen because I wasn't addressing those things is it started affecting my performance. When the people below you aren't getting the feedback they need to do better, then that starts to bubble up and suddenly you don't look too great either. So there's a lot of problems with it. You really undermine your credibility as a leader when you don't have these difficult conversations that need to be had. But I needed to find a way to do it. So I started reading. That was always my go-to solution when I couldn't figure out how to do something in business was I would go start reading. And I read a lot of books on how to have these conversations. And I came up with what I'm going to talk you through today, which was my 5-step framework for how to have difficult conversations. These difficult conversations are so important because when you have them, one, you don't have to make them difficult. You can actually make them very positive. But two, they will build up your whole team. They will help you to achieve your goals faster for your business, for your division, for your team, wherever you happen to need them in your organization. So we're going to kind of dive in. I'll drop some examples and talk through this, but really there's 5 key pieces to this formula for having difficult for conversations. 1, be timely. 2, be objective. 3, practice active listening. 4, focus on solutions. And then 5, include accountability. So what does all that mean? That all sounds great, but how, right? So let's start out with number 1, which is be timely. I really wish I could have come up with some clever, list that I could turn this into a word you could say, but it's still effective. It's just not as easy to remember. So let's talk about be timely. Timely is exactly what it means. I dropped a blog post this week, talked about an old boss of mine, and he used to say to me, Craig, problems don't age well. You've got to deal with the problems when you see them. That is so crucial because problems don't age well. Things don't tend to get better unless you point them out and work on them and find ways to make them better. So when you see performance issues, when you see someone who works for you doing something wrong or see an opportunity for that person to do better, make sure you jump on that as soon as possible, not in a negative way, but we don't want to let these things fester. Think about it. And I'll tell you one example from my experiences when I was at a fairly junior level. I did something, I wouldn't say it was tragic, but it was a little stupid during a client visit with my boss and didn't think anything of it. I realized it was pretty stupid. So I was a little embarrassed by it. Well, 4 months later, I'm at a convention with this same boss walking from the hotel to the convention center. And he looks at me and goes, Craig, that time at this school and you told me you did that thing, I really didn't appreciate that you did that. And I really think it was a problem. And I'm like, that was 4 months ago. Why are you telling me this now? Why did you let me hang for 4 months on this? Frankly, I'd adjusted and forgotten about it. So I was also just a little bit insulted because it wasn't a repeat offense. And that delay I don't know why he did it, and I don't know what triggered it to him on a walk in San Diego. And I resented it. And it also wasn't helpful to improving my performance. So don't do it. Get this thing timely. It may not be you want to tell it to somebody right in front of a huge group of people, but don't let it wait. Don't let it fester. It will not age well. And the longer you wait for it, the response of the person is always going to be, why are you just telling me this now? So timeliness, very important factor in giving feedback. If you've ever been given really untimely feedback, give me a thumbs up in the chat. Let me know, drop me an emoji. Let me know if that's ever happened to you, because I know it's happened to me more than once. The next piece that we want to talk about is being objective. So what does that mean? Well, it's really a key difference. Being objective is where you sit down for this conversation about performance, and it's not accusatory, and you don't make a bunch of assumptions in it. You say it very simply. Craig, I've observed that you are not getting your expense reports in simultaneously or every Friday like you're required to do. Craig, I've noticed, one of my favorites, I've noticed that you're not bagging the French fries the way you're supposed to. That was my old Burger King days when I was in high school. Start with objective. No one can argue with your experience or your observation. They can argue with your opinion. And we're going to get to the opinion piece in a second, but be objective. This is what I have observed. People can't complain with what you observe. There may be a story behind it that you don't know, but stick to the facts. Just do it was the show Dragnet. Just stick to the facts, Joe Friday. Here's what I observed. Here's what I have seen. And get that all out on the table. And as soon as you're done with this, and I cribbed this point a little bit from Crucial Conversations, in all honesty, is after you kind of lay that out all objectively, what else do I need to know? What else would help me understand this situation? That, when you come in guns a-blazing, hey man, I've seen you doing this. I'm so sick of it. You're so lazy. I really need you to pay more attention to detail. Whoa, you get way back on your heels. You don't, and what happens? Heart rate bumps up, cortisol starts spinning through your body, and you start getting defensive. Now you're running into kind of really rough conversation with somebody about performance. So no, keep it objective. Here's what I've observed. What else do I need to understand from your perspective? Boom, done. Then we move into the next piece, which is practicing active listening. And this is a crucial skill for success. If you've ever had any training in sales or coaching or counseling, it's an important part of the process. It's listening. So often when somebody's saying something to us, we're thinking about our response. We're halfway through whatever it is they're saying, and we start thinking about our response. And, God, maybe we're even fiddling on our phone if they're not right in front of us. So we want to practice active listening. So active listening in this context is you've asked them to tell you what else you need to know. Listen to it. Don't form your opinion, even if you have to take a couple seconds after they're done to make sure you totally understand it. And just repeat it back. All right, so what I'm hearing you say is, Craig, you think your way of bagging the French fries is faster than the way that we prescribe it. Am I getting it right? Very simple. Restate what it is they told you. Make sure you understand it in your own words. Don't just repeat them because that's insulting. Don't repeat them word for word. Restate it in your words so they know you've heard them. Okay, so now we have your observation. We have their explanation. We understand what's going on in their head. We don't always understand. It's really helpful in these situations, in these conversations, to assume positive intent. Now, I'm not talking about the fifth time you have to have this conversation on the same thing with a person. It's a very different conversation. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about the first time or second time we're having to deal with these issues. Now we understand what we've seen. We understand what's going on in their head. That allows us then to take the next step to say, okay, here's where, and you're the boss and you may know the thing is, here's why, your assumptions aren't working. This is why I need you to do it this way. This is why I need you to bag the fries this way. I'll just keep flashing back traumatically to my Burger King days. Get the explanation to tell them, here's why that's not really working out so well. Let's move on to the solution. Then we want to get solutions focused. So we've been timely, we've been objective, we've practiced active listening, we've heard their side of the story. Now let's move on to solutions. And this is a mutually agreed to solution. This is what I need you to do. Now, if it's a super dangerous thing they're doing, there's probably not a lot of wiggle room. No, it has to be done this way if you're driving a forklift around a factory warehouse crazily. But what we really want to do is, here is what I need you to do. or have the conversation back and forth about what can you do and start getting to a solution that everybody can mutually agree to. Make this a win-win. When you make it a win-win, it's going to stick. Assume positive intent. Assume they want to improve. Most people want to improve. Most people want to do their job well. Don't assume that they don't. Let's work together and find a mutual solution that we can both agree to that moves the business forward. So we get those solutions and we get focused on those solutions. The last piece is to include accountability. If we don't follow up on these things, they aren't going to get done. So I have two things that I really do when it moves into that accountability section of what we're trying to do. Thing one is after the conversation, I'm going to document it back. Hey, employee A, here is what we talked about today. Here's what we agreed to do. Let's make, is this your understanding? Just let me know if, I'm getting it right. Again, it's kind of that active listening thing. Let's make sure we've agreed upon the solution, followed up in an email. So it's all documented and we know. That's a good first step. They can correct anything or adjust and we move on, merely throw away. Then the next piece that you're going to have to do is you're going to have to hold them accountable. You're going to have to take the time to check in on the process. Over time, we'll go through that situational leadership model. We'll be able to back off sitting on top of them. We'll be able to trust them to do the job. But when we first provide that correction, we really are going to have to stay with it and watch it and check in. Maybe it's once a day, maybe it's once a week. Then we can expand how often. I wouldn't go away from it until we're really sure. Think about how long it takes to create a habit. It's like 6 weeks, right? So give it time to gel, give them time to learn, stay on top of it, not micromanaging, just checking in to make sure it's done. Not necessarily every time they do it, but checking in to make sure things are getting done. And then, we can pull back. Maybe we're not checking on it more than once or twice a year, but we really want to get them to where they know how to do the things correctly that we want done. So it's a simple, easy 5-step framework to help you have the difficult conversations. What this helped me with is now that I had a framework and a way to have these conversations, it made it easier for me. It made it less stressful for me. I don't create conflict right out of the gate. These aren't always conflict situations. When we are timely, it's not festering in us, irritating us, and it's not a surprise to them when it comes up to them much later. When we are objective, we're not accusatory. We're keeping it on a level, calm playing field. We're simply saying, here's what I have observed. 3, practice active listening. Be engaged in the conversation. Repeat back what they said in your own words to make sure we're all 100% aligned. Get solutions focused. Focus on the solution that's mutually beneficial. Go for the win-win. It's always better when you can get the win-win. And then include accountability. Do the follow-up. Make sure that you're staying on top of things until you're really comfortable that everything's getting done right. Give me a thumbs up if you think that would work for you. If that simplifies the frame, having a framework makes it easier for you. So that is it for this week's ClearPath Leadercast. Thanks everybody for joining us. We will see you right back here next Thursday. Thanks.